Hi there. I am Dr. Lara Ervin-Kassab. I'm an assistant professor of teacher education at San Jose State University, and this is a brief video on mindfulness in online environments. So the first question we have to ask ourselves is, why should we use any kind of mindfulness in online teaching and learning? What's the big deal? Well, mindfulness really helps students and participants to make a transition from one environment to another. It's kind of like a mental reset, and it can be something super quick, something that's 10 to 15 seconds to just make that shift from one tool or one topic to another. Mindfulness also helps with self-monitoring, efficacy, and regulation in stressful times, but also when we're working in an online environment. There are often a lot of distractions happening around us, especially if we're working from home. And if your students are attending from home or from a work situation, think of all of the possible things that could distract them from focusing. Teaching mindfulness and using mindfulness in our online classes can really help to mitigate distractions. It also really provides students, and I'll tell you, as I started doing this, it provided it for me too, tools for focusing and coping, both in the class, but also outside the class in my own real world scenarios. So one of the things that I recommend is that we take a look at mindfulness and we think about it as these being brain breaks. So with a brain break in a face-to-face classroom, you don't use them all the time. You don't use them every 2 minutes. You are really strategic about when you provide students with an opportunity to just take a quick break mentally or physically. You want to think about how you're teaching students to both self-monitor and to refocus. We need to also communicate this with family members and community members. The more of us who can be consistent in helping give our students language and strategies for coping with things, the more successful our students will be. Also, mindfulness activities. I'll tell you, the thing that works for me is breathing. So if I had my choice, I would do nothing but breathing mindfulness activities all the time. But when you're releasing mindfulness activities into the classroom, you should really be conducting a mix of breathing, reflection, self-monitoring, and physical activities so that students have a kind of a bag of tricks to be able to go to when they need to use mindfulness. So here are some guidelines for using these resources for online learning and teaching. Keep them short, no more than 3 minutes, and the younger the student, the shorter the time span. Keep in mind the limitations. Students aren't able to see things as clearly in online environments, even when you're using a webcam, as they can in face-to-face. So when you select your mindfulness activities, think about, what do I need to have them prepare? If I want to have them do the deep being present while looking at a raisin, how am I going to make sure all my students have raisins, right? How am I going to be able to facilitate this in an online environment? Consider the space that students are in and their access to materials. And also always have multilingual options. So I have here a link to mindful meditations from UCLA Medical, and they have them in both English and Spanish, and you can find mindfulness meditations in multiple languages. So what do I do? Every single session I do when I bring all my students together, I start with 1 or 2 minutes of a mindful focus activity, and we'll do one of those in just a moment. I have them greet one another, either vocally using their microphones or just in the chat, say hello. And then we do a quick share of what's the greatest thing you ate this week? What's something you're watching on TV this week? Just something to get everybody into the community together. When I see my students getting squirrely, anxious, or starting to disconnect, when I start to feel like they're drifting away, I do a quick mindfulness activity to bring us all back. I have a discussion board that I have posted for sharing questions and suggestions for mindfulness activities. Students will find things that work for them, share them, and then that helps other students find more things to use. And I also send home mindfulness activities, that may be by email right now, for students and those they live with to really be able to use these in their everyday life. So let's try 2 quick online activities. I want you to hold your thumb or a finger up right in front of your face, and we're going to do a quick breathing activity. And what you're going to do is you're going to breathe in through your nose, and you're going to pretend that your thumb or finger is a flower. So you're going to smell the flower, and then it becomes a candle, and you're going to blow it out by blowing your breath out through your mouth. So just take a minute to smell the flower and blow out the candle. You're going to also want to think about teaching students. That's a really great strategy. When we tell students to calm down, instead of telling them to calm down, we can tell them to smell the flower and blow out the candle, because that's more concrete for students. We can also do a listen to your brain check-in. And what I like to do is, while I'm just having a silent minute for my students to breathe in and out and to just pay attention to the thoughts that are going through their minds, is I give them a visualization of having clouds that they can place any thoughts that they have that are bothering them. They can hold on to that thought, look at it, and then place it on a cloud and let it float away while they're simply just being. You can also do mindfulness activities that are physical. So when you're thinking about physical activities, you can find a lot of resources out there on body scans, paying attention to the physical, doing some stretches together. Even if you can't necessarily see all of your students, you can set up the camera, step back a little bit, and do a simple stretch. And then having your students take a moment to just walk out the wiggles, walk their feelings. So if they're feeling wiggly, they just walk in a quick little circle wiggling. They might walk in slow motion. They might walk bouncy, but this has them attend to their feelings and then physically manifest them so that they can become more aware of kind of their mental state at the moment. That's a really great one for kids, but it's also fun for adults. So here are some ideas for offline activities. In addition to teaching mindfulness in our classes that we're holding, think about providing activities that students can do on their own, asynchronously. Encourage coloring on paper, in a sheet or a coloring book, or doing sidewalk chalk. Have them practice just being present as they do various different activities, and then monitor how they're feeling as they're doing those activities so that that can inform their choice making. If you are interested in using an app, there are so many apps out there for mindfulness, it's not even funny. Do your homework before you bring it to your students. Research and try to find out stuff about that app before you recommend it. I have some guides on here. Think about the age of the students and make sure that it's intuitive for them to be able to use. Be aware of whether students can access that and whether they can access the devices. Some students are sharing one Chromebook among 3 or 4 students in their home of different ages and different grades. So here are just 2 lists, 2 website resources that I've found as a beginning start for mindfulness. They're really helpful, and none of us is as strong as all of us. So any resources or ideas that you have for mindfulness in the classroom, online, or face-to-face, please post below. Please consider the accessibility and feasibility of those recommendations in your posts. Thank you so much.